Well, good day and welcome to the show. I'm Maggie Linton. Well, the Women's Final Four is set, and there's never enough said about women's sports. So parents are just as proud of their daughters as they are their sons, and congratulations to the 4 teams and especially the University of Maryland. I'm kind of rooting for them. And we begin this hour with another look at preventing child abuse. Connie Gilbert shares how she survived and finally thrived with the help of Varianne Barker. Then acclaimed vegan chef Attila Hildman shares healthy ways with his new book, Vegan for Fit. But we begin the show with ways to stop domestic violence, in particular child abuse, which in so many cases leads to other problems. Joining us is author Varianne Barker and survivor Connie Gilbert. Connie's story is told in their book, Sacred Secrets, Shedding the Shackles of My Shame. Welcome, ladies.
Welcome. Good morning.
Well, listen, I am so glad you were able to join us. Varianne, let's begin with you to tell how you actually first came in contact with Connie.
Actually, I live in South Carolina, and I do a lot of volunteering. I teach grammar and writing skills in an adult ed setting, and I met Ms. Gilbert there. And we interacted, and she asked me to do her story. That's how I met her.
Okay. And what was it about her story that made you feel that you should definitely get it told?
You know, that's when we started to talk, she described a scene during her childhood that she walked in on. A scene that I would imagine is so traumatic. It stopped me in my tracks. I said something I had to talk about because I had met so many people who had experienced that, and I'm saying that without giving too much away from the book.
All right. Fine.
It was the kind of it's the kind of thing that would definitely leave an indelible scar on a child. And it's the worst and the most heinous kind of abuse that I think exists on a child.
Yeah. Let's bring in Connie Gilbert. Connie, your line is making a lot of noise. And what we're going to do is try calling you back to see if we can't get a better line, okay?
Okay.
I didn't want to just hang up on you and say, what happened? I got cut off. But we are going to try calling you back because we've got a lot of noise. And I want your line to be good so that people can hear your story, okay?
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you. We're going to call Connie right back. But Varianne, the title of the book is Sacred Secrets, Shedding the Shackles of My Shame. And it's a title that really does tell us a lot about what happened, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And actually, we sort of came up with that after we spoke about the life. It was a life that Connie and her siblings were taught to ignore. They were conditioned to pretend what was happening didn't happen. So it was a huge secret. They were essentially threatened not to discuss what was going on in the home. And even after they became adults, it was not the conversation that they had with any kind of truth. It was always like swept under the rug. Well, this happened, and but those are the things that happen. So let's not dwell on it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was. It's. I think it's the kind of. It was an emotional kind of weapon.
And it always is. You know, the April is National Child Abuse Prevention Month, and we had a doctor on, a therapist on the other day talking about it, and it's something that just really is not talked about enough within any communities, but in particular within the Black communities.
And I agree, and I will add to that. I have had the occasion to meet the mother, Connie's mother, and it's amazing that after all of these years, her stance is still one of pretense. She doesn't accept that what happened in her home was abuse. It was just something that happened, and she feels that, you know, everybody should just forget about it and go on. And so she doesn't ascribe the ills that followed every single one of them behind this abuse. She doesn't ascribe that to their life as children. She feels that she has done the best that she did, and she has said this to me. So I'm saying this as somebody who she spoke to.
Mm-hmm. All right.
She did the best.
I think we have Connie back on the line. Hi, Connie.
Hi.
Okay. Oh, that is much better. Thank you.
Great.
I am so glad. That's one of the things that drives me crazy about cell phones. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. But listen, let's go ahead and talk about your family. Just was a family of domestic violence, weren't they?
Yes.
Tell our listeners, please, about it.
Well, it was a lot of, as you say, domestic violence, but it was also a lot of abuse on the children as well. So it wasn't just directed at my mother. When we say domestic violence, we usually think of, the woman being abused, but it went a step further because, his rage is, speaking of him, my father, they went a step further, and we also suffered at his hands as well.
And there were how many children within the home?
8.
Oh, so you it was stacked up and it was equally shared among all, huh?
Oh yes, yes. I think maybe my youngest sister she managed because she was so small to escape that. But
so often the women within the family are the ones who are the most abused. And when I say women, I mean women, the girl children as well as the wife.
Right.
And so you want to expand a little bit on it?
Okay, well, yes. I am the second oldest, and I have an older sister and then a brother under me. So I would say that most of the abuse was directed at us, at the girls, at the hands of my father and my mother. The boys got spanked too, or beat, I should say. They got beat as well, but most of the violence was directed at my older sister, myself, and my mother.
Well, yeah, I was going to say your father. How was he when he wasn't drinking and being a little crazy?
He was, well, of course, he was very different. But he was, it was a totally different person. He was more caring and he was loving, and he seemed to, he seemed to love us and to care for us. And, but I don't recall him ever, I don't recall him ever having, he and my mother having, a loving moment. I don't have memories of that. But he was a lot more, he was just quiet. He was a lot more quiet when he wasn't drinking or, using drugs. But again, I think his drug abuse started long before my mother was aware of it. So he went through different phases,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, with the drugs, did it intensify over the years, and the abuse also intensified for both you kids and your mother?
Yes. He went from drinking to actually using harder drugs, without giving you too much of the story, as Vivian said earlier. So as he succumbed to his drug addiction, he withdrew more from us. But, we had already suffered so many years of abuse. And then he would still have his bits of rage. But again, then that was because he needed that drug.
Mm-hmm. And so because he couldn't get it, then you all became the whipping boys and girls then. Once again, we're talking with Connie Gilbert, who is a child abuse victim, and then also Varianne Barker, who has written her story. and it is quite compelling. And of course, this is April is National Child Abuse Prevention Month, and so we're just trying to let you all know that there is a story out there that is being told. It is called Sacred Secrets, Shedding the Shackles of My Shame. Because you never knew how your dad was when he came into the house, I guess you were always kind of on pins and needles then. There was never kind of a calm moment.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. There was a lot of fear, there was fear, hope, and terror. All three, mixed up in one ball, if I could say that. Fear of hoping that, okay, maybe this would be the night where he wouldn't come home and he wouldn't get up and he wouldn't wake us up and beat us. He wouldn't jump on my mother. So I lie in bed many a night just trembling and, imagining, oh, my God, is this going to be the night? Are we going to get beat tonight? Or is he going to kill us tonight? Is he going to kill my mother? What may happen? I didn't know. But as a child, I lived in a lot of fear.
When we hear this kind of story, we keep saying, why didn't someone leave? Mm-hmm. And we were talking to Very Ann, you were saying that her mother remained in denial, even to this day.
Yes, she does. And I have actually spoken to her, apart from speaking to Connie. I spoke to her directly. And she's very dug into her position. I think she's really now thinking of it now that I am giving her not the kind of response that she has conditioned Connie and her siblings to give her. I have said to her that I think that she was absolutely wrong, and there's absolutely no reason for a person to stay in an environment of abuse and raise children there. And the kind of abuse, again, like I said, I'm not giving a whole lot out of the book, but it involved molestation, incest, murder, drugs. I mean, it was really intense. The home environment was very intense. And she still seems to say, she says that, well, it happened and we just have to move on from that. And she thinks that she did the best that she could. Like she told me, I had to raise them when he didn't. So I told her that's what parents do. You don't get any medals for raising your children.
Yeah. But you do, you are appreciated more when you stand up and really, in a sense, fight for them. Connie, how have your other brothers and sisters turned out, and what issues have they had because of being raised in a home like this?
Well, they vary, really, from A to Z. And the abuse has affected us all in different ways, in my opinion, But I am the only one that has been, brave enough to come forth and say, well, this is how this has affected me, And it explains so many of the questions that I had concerning my life and why I took the turns that I did take. So I would say that they are still in need of confronting the past so that they can really move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can jump in there, too,
yes.
Again, without giving too much, every single child has had the same ill, and that ill is drugs. That ill is incarceration. That ill is poor social skills in the environment. Every single child, like she said, with the exception of the last, who was too young
right.
At the time
Siblings.
To have been abused as they were abused.
And so it does lead to so many other issues. And then, did you ever seek any kind of help? Or I know you have now, haven't you? And trying to move on and forward with your life. But that is an issue that so many people do not move forward with, is seeking real help.
Yes. It is a very difficult barrier to break. It's or I could say the shackles. You get accustomed to those shackles, and it becomes a way of life for you. The guilt, the shame, and the hush hush. again, the name of the book is Sacred Secrets, and you begin to think that these things that we're so secretive about are sacred, and they're not. And we must use our voice to tell our story and to get all of this stuff out. Get it out and allow yourself to be cleansed and to become anew.
And also to help others, too.
Absolutely. Which is a great deal of the reason why I did the book.
To show people that they can move forward.
Yes. Because it's not just about me. The more I became free, the more people I began to meet. I began to meet other people, men and women, who had gone through something similar, who needed just an ear, needed to know that there was someone out there that had experienced something very similar to their lives and had moved on past that. So that's my joy. I love that.
Yeah.
That's an inspiration.
Once again, we're talking with abuse victim and survivor, Connie Gilbert, and author Verianne Barker. They're talking about child abuse, domestic violence in general, but also about their book, Sacred Secrets, Shedding the Shackles of My Shame. If you all have any questions or comments, you're certainly welcome to call. It is 866-801-8255. Once again, that's 866-801-8255. How would you describe your realization that you could get out of that house, Connie, and try at least getting out on your own? And how hard was it?
Oh, Maggie, it was a very difficult thing. I was told for so many years, starting with at the age of 4 or 5, when I could, I could verbalize, an emotion, that you don't talk about it. You don't tell anybody what's going on in our household. So I thought to myself, well, if I can't talk about it, I have no rights. But I determined that when I turned 18, I said, okay, when I turn 18, I'm an adult now. I have a right to stand up to this. I have a right to. And I said, and when I turn 18, this is going to stop. It has to stop. So that, I think that was a turning factor, but I just knew that in the inner core of my being, that I could make a difference, that my life did not have to end like this, that there was another chapter of my life, and I want to change that. And so I can't be ashamed of what has happened to me. I have to talk about it. I have to confront it, and be willing to do the work. Be willing to do the work on myself, and to recognize the error of my thinking.
Did you ever have a chance to confront your father?
No, I didn't.
Because I was wondering if he was abused as a child also, because that's what happens so often.
Yes, that has been a question that, I don't have an answer to.
Yeah. But so often, and did your mom know anything? Or because of her stance, has she done any kind of changes?
Not from my perspective. She's quite complacent with, her life, and she feels, again, if you read the book, that she handed it over to the Lord, as she says. Everything is handed over to God, and so we don't quite see eye to eye on that. But my prayer is that in time she will come into, her truth and be able to stand and not be ashamed of being a human being and making mistakes, and changing the way that you think, change your mindset, and be able to say, you know what, yeah, I messed up, I did.
And also accepting responsibility for your children and the way you left them, in a sense, vulnerable to all the abuse also.
Yep. Right. Yes.
All right. Now I know that this book is your book is being published in a sense and can only be sold on your website. Why did you decide to do that, Varian?
Mostly because it's quite an obstacle course to get a book into mainstream press. Not a financial obstacle course as well as one that requires, I guess, too much of literary politics. So I didn't. I decided to publish it myself, and we have done reasonably well considering it's being sold as an independent site. Our website is, if I can give it.
Sure, of course, because I will too.
www.thelocalchristiantownhall.org/books. Again, that's the local Christian Town Hall.org/books. And you can go on there. You will see our interviews. We've done several interviews. We've done several book tours. We've done several dramatic readings. And we're trying to keep this alive because it is an issue that does not get as much of a spotlight as it should get. I mean, I know that there are other very devastating epidemics out there, but abuse seems to be the silent shame. Nobody seems to want to talk about that. It's always referred to in tones that are comparatively hushed. So we are pushing and hoping to make this story as compelling as it is, and the fact that it has so many components to abuse, to take it around and let people see that irrespective of where you were or what you had to endure, you can still come out and be that diamond you were intended to be.
Yeah.
Amen.
And just the fact that the abuse went on for so long with so many different individuals also, even though it's called a family, it was just a very bad situation for a lot of people.
And it's also, like I said, I mean, my conclusion after interviewing, it took us about 17 months to get this book done. And as I interviewed Connie, I realized that even at that age, which was about, a year and a half ago, when we were working on it, she was still so conditioned. She was still under the emotional control of her mother. I concluded that even though a lot of the physical abuse, a lot of the physical stuff came from the father, the mother was an emotional controller. And that is evident today, even in the other siblings, who are still very much in their mother's camp, not saying exactly what the situation was, but just alluding to it in like passing statements and saying, well, it's over and done with. But it really isn't over and done with, because everybody has a scar. Everybody is still trying to maneuver through life with the poor skills that they left home with, or they were given to go out with.
Right. We've got a call from Artesia from North Carolina. Go ahead, Artesia.
Yes, hi. I have dealt with the same thing of drug abuse, domestic violence, as far as being molested, and then even during the time that I was being molested from the age of 5 to the age of 8, it was by my own siblings. And then my mother wanted to deny the situation, and that's the same thing as far as want to cover it up and don't want to talk about it and don't want to recognize the situation.
So, we know that there are those out there, and thank you for sharing. So have you gotten help?
Yes, ma'am. I'm 36 at this time. I have 3 beautiful children. I have overcame every situation that I've dealt with in the past, because not alone was I molested, I was gang raped when I was younger.
Oh, my God.
I was basically on drugs myself. I was a drug abuser. I even had my kids where they were taken away from me through DCF, and I was able to regain the custody of my kids again and to start a new life. I even been through the circumstance of my husband being married for 3 years, didn't know he was HIV positive, ended up finding out that he was, and I ended up being HIV positive myself, and I still give my thoughts, my grace, my mercy unto God for even still keeping me for who I am and what I'm doing for myself today. I'm currently in school, wanting to be a substance abuse counselor with addiction. So, I mean, it's a lot you have to go through, but as long as I get my faith through God through the whole situation, because I know that without Him, I wouldn't be who I am today. Even I could have committed suicide plenty of times. I mean, things. So I can feel the pain, and I know what you always say in denial, and I use the drugs to try and cope with the situation. And to try to release all my thoughts and everything into the drugs and saying, okay, this is a better life I can live, just staying on drugs so I won't even have emotional distress or depression stages. But as I overcame those situations, I learned that it's a truly better side of life as I'm living today.
Yes.
You know, and
awesome.
If I can say something too, this is the type of confession, if you will, we hear every time we do readings. I have seen men come forward. One time we had a 6 to 7 year old man who actually spoke of his abuse that he had never told anybody of. We were in New Jersey a few months ago, and one woman came forward with a similar kind of story. It's the kind of wound that seems to sit very deeply, and people are so mortified by talking about it. But what we are happy about is that this book seems to have removed all the shackles, and people are coming forward and saying what it was that happened to them. And yes, it is a serious problem, and I can totally relate from the point of having written the book.
Yeah. Well, Artesia, thank you so much for sharing your story, and we both wish you God's blessings for moving forward with your life and being a good mom and taking care of your kids.
Yes, that is so awesome. Yes.
So if anybody's out there that's going through any of these situations that I have dealt with, I know it's a brighter side. Don't give up. Don't give in. Continue to keep your faith in God, and He'll bring you all the way through.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. Beautiful.
We're going to go. Connie, I'm going to give you some last words, and then Varian. Go ahead, please, Connie. What were some of the last words you'd like to give or share?
I would like to say that it's people like young lady Artesia, is her name? Yes, coming forth that really makes this all work, because it shows that, you know, people are not concerned with the shame anymore. They're not letting the shame keep them in the dark and keep them in bondage, because it is a form of bondage, you know, and we can only do it ourselves. We can only do it ourselves. You know, no one else can pull you by the coat and say, hey, you know, you need to get your life together. You need to stop doing this. But they may not know why you got there. How did you get to be in this position? Why? You know? But as bad as all of that sounds, it's my story is really powerful. It's really powerful. It's powerful because it becomes a story of survival and overcoming, like Artesia's. And that is what I talk to victims about. Yeah. And I have become an activist for the prevention of child and domestic abuse, and I'm available to share my story to let people know that there is always a way out.
That's right. All right. And Varian, again, I know you want to give the website, and I will too.
Right. Okay, well, if you're going to give the website, I'll say that what I learned from doing this story was that don't judge anybody. And I can say unashamedly that I used to be a judge of character. But after meeting her and listening to her story, then we understand why a lot of people do what they do. Mm-hmm. You understand that it's a nurturing. And so when society points its finger at the victims of abuse without knowing that they really were victims of abuse, there might be the people who are now filling our jails and causing all sorts of social mayhem. But what is the reason? That's what we never get to. Yeah. We never get to the fact that the family has failed a child. We never get to the fact that domestic abuse is the equivalent of a cancer that continues to decay an individual. And we don't shine a lot of light on it. We never speak of it the other. We don't have walks, and I'm not putting any disease down. I'm saying what we need to do to elevate the awareness of this disease is to do as much as we do for everything else that is less glamorous, or rather this is less glamorous than the others.
And it's something we need to do.
Yes, it's something we need to do, and we need to do it quickly, because these skills are passed from generation to generation. A lot of what we didn't get to say was that, yes, a lot of abuse. Her mother saw abuse. The father was abused somewhat, and so that passed on to them. And then she has siblings who have now passed those sad skills onto their children. So unless we arrest this, call it what it is, and speak about it often and without shame, it's destined to continue decimating our communities.
Right. I'm going to have to cut you off because we got to go to break and we've got another guest. But once again, many thanks to abuse victim and survivor Connie Gilbert and author Verianne Barker. Their book is Sacred Secrets, Shedding the Shackles of My Shame. It's available through the website, thelocalchristiantownhall.org/books. Once again, thelocalchristiantownhall.org/books. We will have all the information on my Facebook page. Thank you very much, Connie and Verianne.
Thank you. You can post this phone number as well.
Okay. We'll